So the Nightmare on Elm Street movies have a tighter continuity than most, but there's still a few gaps to figure out. And most importantly, today we're going to take a look at all of the methods that have been used to kill Freddy Krueger, and we're going to ask the question why. Why didn't anybody learn from their methods and, I don't know, maybe try them again? So the original film sets it all up for us. We get most of the basic backstory. Good old child killer Freddy Krueger escapes punishment for his crimes on a technicality, so all of the local parents take matter into their own hands and set him on fire. Unfortunately, he gains the ability to come back in people's dreams and sets out to get his revenge by killing all of their children. The year of the first film is never given, but everyone's clothing appears to be pretty early 80s. Our heroine, Nancy, discovers that she can bring things out of her dream and tries to pull her attacker into the real world to take care of him. The movie wants us to think that she succeeds, but as soon as Freddy starts using his supernatural abilities, it's pretty clear that the entire end of the film is still a dream and Nancy's waking up was a fake-out. Anyway, Nancy uses some advice that Jack Sparrow gives her and turns her back on Freddy, refusing to give him the fear that he needs to keep going, and that seems to work until Freddy shows up to drag a mannequin through a door. The second film picks up again 5 years later. We learn this as our new protagonists discover Nancy's diary, you know, the one that we never saw her writing in, and proclaim it to be 5 years old. Freddy learns a new trick here, and instead of coming through people's dreams, he possesses the body of a young boy in order to manifest in the real world. He seems to be able to do this pretty easily, so it's pretty perplexing that he never tries to do this again, especially when being able to enter the real world would really benefit him in the later films. So, by the end of the film, Freddy has completely taken over Jesse, and only the true love of a woman can save him from forever being gay. I mean, being Freddy. Sorry, I get the film and the subtext confused sometimes. So when the third film came around, Freddy no longer had any interest in entering the real world and is now attacking the last of the Elm Street children locked away in a mental ward. Nancy's back, but not only doesn't try the whole turning her back on Freddy trick again, but she also never tells any of the other children to try it, even though it seemed fairly effective for her in the first one. Nancy tells the children that Freddy killed her friends 6 years ago, which sets this film just 1 year after the events of the second film, which means that no one believes these children that a burnt man with a red and green sweater and finger knives is out to kill them just 1 year after a man fitting that description killed a bunch of kids at a pool party. This movie also gives us our first wisecracking Freddy, setting up the cartoon character that he'll be in future installments. It turns out that the way to kill Freddy this time is to lay his spirit to rest and to bury his remains. It seems to work pretty well with Freddy turning into sparkle motion, but we lose Nancy in the process. The fourth film marked the first time that they really had to bring the character back from the dead, and oh boy did they go in an interesting direction. You see a dog pees fire on his grave, and that brings him back, sort of. See, the closest that I can muster is that Kristen, this is her, she looks about 100% less Arquette-ish in this one, becomes so afraid that Freddy might come back that she causes the other Elm Street survivors to fear him again, and that fear is enough to return him. That's what I'm going with, because the dog pee thing is just weird. Anyway, there's no set time frame given, but judging from Joey's hair length and the fact that they're all still in high school, it's about 1 year after the last film, and Freddy kills all of the surviving Elm Street kids. And then Kristen passes her powers on to the new girl, Alice. And that's the thing. They've established that Freddy can only go into the dreams of the Elm Street kids, and if he wants to reach anyone else, then he has to use Kristen to pull people into her dreams so he can get to them. So, if she hadn't passed her powers on, Freddy would be stuck with no way to get into the other kids' dreams. So, way to go, Kristen. Team player. Now, Freddy uses Alice to kill off a bunch of her friends in weird ways, until she is forced to fight him herself. Finally, Alice uses the combined powers of all of her dead friends to kill Freddy again. Just kidding. All of that is basically useless. She kills him by showing him his reflection. I don't know. There's some stuff about a dream master that literally only matters in this movie and no others, and it's declared that seeing his reflection will kill Freddy, so I imagine that he couldn't see himself in any of these freaking mirrors right here. Alice returns in the next movie, The Dream Child, and if you can't guess by the title, she's pregnant. About another year has passed since the last one, based on the fact that they're all finally graduating high school, and no one actually mentions any of their classmates that just died or anything. Interesting note, their graduation caps clearly state 89, giving us our first concrete dates in the entire series. Using this knowledge, we can backtrack all the films. That makes Part 4 in 1988, Part 3 in 1987, Part 2 in 1986, and finally the first film takes place in the year 1981, which is totally believable as long as you assume that it's an alternate universe in which Evil Dead was released just a little bit early. Anyway, Freddy uses Alice's dreaming fetus to get into the dreams of her friends and kill everyone again in even more cartoony fashion, until finally taking him on one-on-one for the fate of her unborn child. How do they kill him? Bear with me. They free the soul of his mother, who shows up just as Alice's child spits the souls that Freddy's been feeding him back at him. The souls then pull away from Freddy, yanking him into a Freddy fetus, who is then absorbed into the womb of his mother's ghost. Got that? Good. The maddening thing here is that Alice doesn't even try to kill Freddy with the mirror again. The movie could have had her try it and not work for some reason or something, but that doesn't happen. So not only does she not try it, but no one mentions anything about Dream Masters and Gates, and as if they don't matter at all anymore. Promising to be the final installment never sticks, and this certainly didn't here either. The sixth one said it was going to kill Freddy in 3D, and all it really did was kill the franchise's dignity. It set 10 years from now, as the opening states, so we're going to go ahead with the idea that means it's set 10 years after the last one, because nothing else really makes sense. That places this one in 1999. In this one, we discover that Freddy actually used to be married and had a child that was taken away from him. John here believes that he's that child, even though that this professor shows him that Freddy's kid was taken away in 1966, which would mean that Freddy's kid was at an absolute minimum of 33 years old here, and come on, kid. So somehow, Freddy is now warping reality outside of dreams and has killed all of the children of Springwood, so when a bunch of troubled teenagers and one of their counselors rolls into town, he decides to kill them in the most cartoonish ways possible, and then hitchhike out of town using his daughter's head. Yes, it's revealed that Maggie here is Freddy's daughter, and she figures out Nancy's original method of pulling Freddy out of the dream and killing him in reality. She manages to do just that, even though Freddy can still change shape and crawl on ceilings for some reason, and she then kills Freddy with his own glove, and then blows him up with dynamite, while dreaming demon sperm monsters shoot out of his mouth, because the second movie isn't the only one with homosexual subtext. Oh, the sperm monsters are the things that gave Freddy his powers, even though he's never mentioned them before, and then just so happens to start talking about rather randomly with a guy he's never met before, so Freddy's definitely dead, right? Well, yes and no. The next installment is out of continuity with the rest of the series and takes place in the real world with Heather Langenkamp and Robert Englund instead of Nancy and Freddy. It takes place in real world 1994, the year in which it was shot, and Freddy sports a different look and apparently went hat shopping. Look at how nice that one looks. So Freddy is killed ridiculously easy here. He's locked in a furnace and burnt alive. That's it. In the dream world. With all his power. And that works. So close to a decade later, we bounce back to regular continuity with Freddy vs. Jason. As I talked about in my Friday the 13th timeline, this one takes place in 2003, so it's a mere 4 years after Freddy's dead. In those 4 years, all of the teenagers move back into Springwood or something, and Freddy's not dead somehow, but he's stuck in dreamland with no power, and no one remembers him. We get another callback to the first movie, as they realize the way to kill Freddy is to pull him into the real world and let Jason take care of him. So Jason proceeds to slash Freddy a bunch, yanks his arm off, they both get blown up, and then Jason pushes his clawed arm right through the chest. One silly one-liner later, and the female lead chops his head right off, and that's the official death of Robert Englund Freddy for the franchise as far as we know it, and let's face it, it's a really freaking good death. So there was the 2010 remake, which I would talk about, but I saw it a while ago, and can't remember anything about it. In fact, I rewatched it about 2 nights ago, and it was so unremarkable that I still can't remember a damn thing about it, except that Freddy now looks like Kelly Leak, and they again bring him into the real world to kill him with a paper cutter. A paper cutter! Oddly enough, even though it was financially successful, no sequel was put through, and instead we're getting yet another remake somewhere in the future, because a dog apparently peed flames on the franchise. Most likely it'll be another start with another new actor playing Freddy, and then we're just a few reboots and remakes away from the Texas Chainsaw series.